everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria Montefusco, and I'm a lover of all things when it comes to makeup, beauty, and fragrance. And today, I want to talk about my favorite palettes from 2021. I believe all of these palettes, actually no, that's not true. One of these palettes may not have been released in 2021, but I believe all the rest of them have been, so I think I have like 7 palettes here I just want to talk about very quickly. These are my favorite eyeshadow palettes that I personally feel like I use the most. These are the best of the best, the creme de la creme of my collection. So since it's New Year's Eve when I'm filming this, I want to do like a quick little roundup of my favorites for 2021. So if you're interested in seeing the eyeshadow palettes that I really enjoyed this year, then please keep on watching. So when I post this, it's gonna be the new year, but since it's New Year's Eve, I wanted to film this today. And these are in no particular order. These are just eyeshadow palettes I really enjoy. So I'm first gonna start with this palette right here. This is the Ace Beauté Oceanic palette. This is the reformulated version. So the original version of this palette was not released in 2021, but the reformulation was. So I've always loved this blue-green color story, but I always thought that the formula was bad, to be frank. The mattes were just really hard to blend and work with. The shimmers were so like dry and crumbly and just not shiny and metallic and sparkly enough for my liking. And I really do feel like they fixed the issues with this reformulation. These mattes are a lot easier to work with. They're a lot less patchy. They're just more pigmented and more beautiful. The metallics are worlds better than they used to be. They're just more creamy to the touch. They're more sparkly on the eye. I just really enjoy them. So overall, I really do love this palette. I've always loved the color story, but I kept the old version because I love the color story so much, even though I didn't like the formula. But now I'm so happy to have a version of this palette that I really enjoy the formula of. So I'm really happy to have this in my collection. I've used this like 3 or 4 times since I got it this month. And I really, really do love it. So because of how much I love the color story in the old one, but because the formula is so much better, this is why it's in my favorites of 2021. Next up, I believe this palette was released in 2020, but I bought it in 2021. It was a favorite of mine in 2021. And this is the Natasha Nona Bronze palette. This was my first ever Natasha Nona like midi-sized palette, my first ever non-mini from her. So you all probably know what this looks like. It's just a very nice, warm, neutrally bronze palette. I really do enjoy this palette. I feel like this palette is very versatile. I use this a lot in the summertime because, you know, bronzy, goddessy kind of looks. I also use this a lot in the fall because I feel like these warm tone neutrals really go nicely in the fall. I do use this in the spring as well. Not so much in the winter time. I'm not really a warm neutral kind of person in the winter time, but I do think this is a really nice palette. I love the formulas in here. The mattes are great. The metallics are great. The cream to powders are also great. So I have no complaints here. It's just a very versatile, neutrally bronzy palette. I reached for this a lot this year, and I really do enjoy it. So that is why it is in my top favorites. Next up, this is a palette I tried in the very beginning of 2021. And this is the Adept Cosmetics Plain Jane palette. I believe they have like released this and some of the shades are different or something like that, but this is the OG version. I really enjoy this. I am wearing this palette actually today in my inner corner and also on my brow bone. So that shimmer that you see in my inner corner and brow bone, that is thanks to this palette. So I enjoy this palette. These shimmers, these metallics are like wet to the touch, and they just provide the most beautiful sparkle. Some of these are absolutely gorgeous toppers. Some of these are a bit more pigmented, but either way, I really do enjoy them. The only shade I think is kind of a dud is ACI 10. It's a little bit dry versus the other shadows, but I believe that's one of the shades they replaced in like the new version. So if you get the new version, you would not be getting this shade. I think you're getting like another like light bluish kind of shade. But this is a beautiful palette. I really do enjoy it. I use it a lot as like a palette when I'm using like a palette that has a lot of mattes in it, or a palette that doesn't have shimmers that I really enjoy. This is definitely like a palette of pops, like an accent palette that I really do reach for. So I really do enjoy the Plain Jane. I reach for it a lot, and I reached for it today. Next up, I want to talk about this palette. Sadly, this is no longer available, but this is the Kaleidos Club Nebula palette. This was a collaboration palette with Angelica Nyqvist here on YouTube. I absolutely love her channel. She really got me into indie makeup. And so when she released a collab with Collidos, I loved her. I always wanted to try Collidos as a brand. So I was like, you know what? This is perfect. I'm gonna try it. So this palette, I love this color story. Like the blues, the greens, the warm tones, you can do so much with this palette. You can really go, you can really go monochromatic if you want to. You can do something a little bit more funky when you're mixing cool tones and warm tones. These mattes are pretty easy to work with. The only two exceptions are Queen of Blades and Void, which are those two really dark mattes, the green and the blue in the top row. Those are not the easiest to work with. I sometimes have blending issues when I put those in my outer corner, but that just might be a me thing. I'm not really sure, but all of the other shades in here perform extremely well, no problems at all. I love these metallics so much. I think they're phenomenal. I would love to try more palettes from Kaleidos. I just haven't yet. Not really any of their other color stories are super attractive to me. I just haven't been motivated to, pull the trigger and get anything else. But I really do enjoy this formula. I wish this palette was a little bit thinner. It's very bulky, but I think the packaging is really cool too. I reached for this palette a ton, especially in the fall and winter time, just because I feel like these bright, dark jewel tones are more like fall and winter for me, but also in the spring and summer. I reach for this thing all the time. Next up, another collab palette I want to talk about. This is the Glamlight and Michaela palette. So personally, I don't watch Michaela. I'm not subscribed to her. I don't follow her on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. I just don't have a TikTok, and I don't know, like her makeup's not really my style. So I just don't really follow her, but I love Glamlight. And when I saw this color story in the packaging, I was like, you know what, I'll try it. And I really do love this palette. So here's what it looks like. It's a really good mix of like neutrals and also some bright colors with like those purples and the blues and the greens. I really think it's a beautiful palette. I created a lot of really fun looks with this. I remember when I first got it, I think I was at like the lake house for probably like a week or two. During the summertime, Luke and I decided to work there for like a week. And so we were there. This was the only palette I brought because it was brand spanking new. And I created a bunch of looks for a week with this palette. I just had a blast with it. So I reached for this quite a bit. I do really enjoy it. I think this is a great palette for travel. This palette actually has Glamlight's new metallic formula, which I really enjoy. I always loved their old metallic formula, don't get me wrong, but this new metallic formula is a little bit sparklier, a little bit wetter feeling, a little bit like smoother to the touch. I enjoy it a little bit more. And then of course it's the same mattes that I know and love from Glamlight. So I enjoy this palette. I love Glamlight. Don't really have an opinion on Michaela, but I do really enjoy this palette. Next up, another colorful palette that I absolutely adore. And this is the Blend Bunny Surge palette. This is phenomenal. I absolutely love this palette. So I think it's so unique the way that this is laid out. As you can see, you go from like lightest shade, which is like a washed out pastel, all the way down to like dark shades, and then like neons and metallics for each color story. So each color story is in like a column. So if you want to create something very monochromatic and get a really good blend, you're able to do that with one column. But if you want to mix colors, you also can too. I just feel like this format makes a lot of sense. The matte formula is phenomenal. I absolutely adore it. The metallics are good. They're not my favorite formula in the world, but they're good. They're not nearly as like sparkly, shiny as I prefer, but I do find them to last on the eyes. They look pretty, they're good. But the mattes are really where this stands out. I love the way this is laid out. I think this is phenomenal, really creative, love the colors, and I know she's releasing a neutral palette. I think it's January 2nd that she's releasing a neutral palette, and I'm probably gonna buy it because it's a neutral palette with a twist, and it's like in that same like column format that just makes a lot of sense to my brain and makes me very happy. So I love this palette. I reached for this a ton this year. And last but certainly not least, if I had to give a palette the title, the crown of my favorite palette of 2021, this would be the palette. This palette is the best neutral palette I have ever tried, period. I don't see how any other neutral palette could beat this. And this is the Vanity Makeup Cosmetics, a signature palette. This brand needs to release more palettes, because if they do, I will buy every single one of them. I don't care what the color story is, because this palette is just absolutely phenomenal. You may be looking at this and think, wow, this is so boring. But trust me, the looks that you get with this are anything but boring. These three like metallics that are like in the middle are the most beautiful, sparkly, like textured metallics I have ever tried in my life. I'm absolutely in love with them. The other metallics are good too, but these three metallics are truly something special. I need Vanity Makeup Cosmetics to only put those kinds of metallics in their palette, because I will be extremely happy. The mattes also blend like a dream. Again, I just love the way that this is formatted, because there's like a matte that corresponds with each metallic. It just makes a lot of sense, and I love things that make sense. I reached for this palette so much, basically any single time that I wanted a neutral palette, I am probably reaching for this. Like, the Natasha Nona bronze is phenomenal, but it's very monotone. It's just basically different versions of bronze. This can give you cool tone neutral, warm tone neutral. This can give you smoky neutral. This can give you all different types of neutral. I just think it's phenomenal, and Vanity Makeup Cosmetics needs to release more palettes, because I will be like first in line to buy them. This is an amazing, amazing formula. So that is it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed hearing about my favorite palettes of 2021. Like I said, I believe most of these were released this year, but one of them or two of them may not have been, but I just absolutely adore all these palettes. All of these palettes have my stamp of approval, but I would love to hear from you all in the comments. Do you own any of these palettes, or any of these palettes on your wish list? Let's have a conversation, and I would love to chat with you all. If you have any questions on these palettes too, just let me know. More than happy to help you out with them. Most of these palettes as well, I do have videos on, so just search like my name and then the name of the palette, and you'll probably be able to find it. So with that, thank you for spending part of your day with me. If you like this video, please like this video. It helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and it also helps me know what kinds of content you like to see on my channel. And if you like me, please subscribe. I'd love to have you all here. I post 2 to 3 videos per week. And with that, I will see you all next time. Bye.